Welcome everyone. I'm Irakli and this is Young Women Leaders in Action. Today our guests are Talya Porre and Maya Fadlon, UN Youth Delegates from Israel, two great women leaders. Thanks for your time and I'm happy to see you here today. Okay, Maya, let's start with you. Our first part before the UN thing.
Yes, of course. I'd love to. For
Yeah,
thanks so
7,
much.
8 minutes each.
Yeah, sure, no
Mhm.
problem. Uh, First of all, I'd really like to start by thanking you for first of all for giving me the floor as we said in our UN days, but most of all for inviting us and letting us be part of this really incredible and inspiring project. So thank you for that. We really do appreciate it greatly. And before I was a UN youth delegate, I was I was and still am a bachelor's degree student. I study communication and journalism together with international relations at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Prior to that, I was a company commander in the Israeli Defense Forces. In Israel, we do have a 2-year mandatory service, but aside from that, I was elected to go into officers course. So I went on that, and I had the privilege of really continuing forward and gaining many more values than I've anticipated to gain from my military service, which I consider to be a great privilege. And that would be me. I am the junior youth delegate as of now. Our mandate is of 2 years. Talya could explain much more about that, but I have just started and gained my position. So Talya, please go ahead.
Thank you, Maya, and also thank you so much, Iraqi, for inviting us speaking today. It's a great pleasure. For those of you who don't know, we have been chatting on Instagram for like almost a year and a half, talking all about like sustainable goals and Israel and everything. So it's really exciting to be here today. Before I address the Israeli model for youth delegate, I will tell a little bit about myself. So I grew up in a really small community in the north of Israel, big family, small community. And today I work as a business analyst for an organization that deals with impact investment and promoting SDG goals. Also, I'm Israel Youth Delegate to the UN while almost finishing my MBA in business administration, strategy consulting. So I will talk about a little bit about why and I'm here in general, what brought me to even be interested in international relations. When I was 16, I flew for a summer camp in the United States, and I joined to this special program of the Jewish Agency. And this experience had a huge impact on me. I had to explain people about what is Israel, where do I come from, people ask me different questions about our culture as Judaism and also about myself and as an Israeli. They were really showing interest and they were curious about my life. And I suddenly understood I'm kind of like a little diplomat when I walk around the world and I say, my name is Talya, I'm from Israel. People are like wondering, oh, how it's like be in Israel, how it's like live in Israel. Most of you probably heard about our mandatory service, as Maya started saying, and people ask how was it for you? And then I was like, okay, I like it. I love talking about my home. I love explaining where I come from. I like showing people what is Israel for me. So when it was about time to choose what I'm going to study, it was obvious to me that I'm going to choose something that had to do with international relations, world communities. So I chose to study international relations and also East Asia studies and learned a little bit of Mandarin. I cannot say I can speak fluently, but I know some because I wanted to learn about unique and other cultures and languages. So as kind of like wrap it up it all, as I started saying, the organization I work for deals with impact investment and aims to build trust in the Israeli society. I believe that if we build trust together as a society, we can all go through and work for the SDGs, not just in the nation level, but in the international level. Thank you.
Did you have any hobbies, interests?
Of course. So like I would start and then I will back to you. My hobby used to be horseback riding. I love that, but it wasn't like a really UN hobby. And other than that, I was in touch with the Jewish community of Detroit. That was my summer camp. We had programs from the Jewish agency. All the Israeli campers were meeting once a week, and it was really about building leadership from a young age. And I will talk about it furthermore later. But Maya, your hobby.
Sure. Prior to my my hobbies, as interesting as they may be, I'd also touch, because it's a really good point, onto how I got to be the youth delegate, less on the bureaucracy of it all, but more as to the inner motivation. So similarly to Talya, when I did my junior and senior year of high school, I went on to do it. I was in a family relocation, and I lived in St. Louis, Missouri for 2 years, which is a city with a very, very tiny Jewish community, let alone the knowledge about Israel. And a lot of times, especially nowadays, when you hear about Israel due to mass media and algorithms and how we get our quote unquote news, would be fake and false. And Israel is one of the main countries that would suffer from the consequences of not too true, let's just call it that, not too true media. And I've expected it firsthand. So it really got me into thinking of, not only is it interesting and I want to do it as a career path or whatnot, but I think it's vastly important that it should be done. Like, not only do I want to, but I feel like it's a need as much as it's a want. One of the things that got me through this understanding is a very, very interesting observation that I've heard someone speak about anti-Semitism. So let's say, and we could talk. I feel like we'll talk about it much more broadly in the continuation of our conversation. But as of now, especially with Kanye West, and we're going to talk about it. But it's let's just say we're on the news quite a lot, unfortunately, and not always due to the best circumstances. That being said, one very interesting comparison that I've heard was, okay, how do you view racism? You view racism, and if you have a racist point of view, you would see a person from the other race as less than. He would be less smart, he would be less educated, he would be less with manners, he would be less than, or more towards violence. If it would be more, would be towards the negative aspect of his or her life. In comparison, if you would look at anti-Semitism, a lot of the times it would be the contrary. They control everything. They have way too much power. They sit in the topmost position. They control the world. All these obscure observations. And it's a quite interesting thing to look at, because if you would view the number of Jewish people living on planet Earth as of now, and this is as true as it gets, it's a statistic from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Israel, and trust me, we look into it quite broadly. But as of now, if you would look at all of the Jewish people worldwide, we're 15 million. And it is extremely little. I mean, I'm not gonna go into comparisons and compare to, I don't know, like New York plus Jersey or whatnot, but really, when you look at it, it's based on the power that people assume that we have versus the amount of people. It's quite obscure. So I would say this understanding, really, of looking at how anti-Semitism is being portrayed, and as a derivative, how Israel is being viewed and looked upon really got me into wanting to do as much as I can for this job. Aside from that, I like to play piano just to kind of light things up. I like to play piano. I like to read books, and I like to learn, kind of in a broad term. Every time I hear something that I have not known a couple of minutes prior, I view it as an opportunity. So those are for my hobbies and desires.
Okay, let's move on to our second part on how it is organized in your country, the Youth Delegate program, and how did you get there?
Okay, so let me go first, and then we'll go. So for me, it's before I will talk about the model, how did I get the job, like the mandate? It's a funny story. I saw a post on Facebook, and it was like the last day you could apply, and I was like, why not? Let's try. Maybe they will choose me. Not really believing I will be chosen, but things happen, and I was chosen and was really, really excited and happy about it. Since that experience in the summer camp, it was literally my dream to serve Israel in the UN, to be Israel official representative, and not just doing that as a hobby, as we earlier said. So I was really excited about that and really happy about it. A little bit about the Israeli model. So in Israel, the program is pretty young, meaning there were only 8 youth delegates before Maya and I. And we're still establishing the platform here. The representative before me was the first time that there were 2 youth delegates, meaning senior and junior, so that we'll have time to work together and develop the role together. So it's pretty new here in Israel, and we're still learning how to do it better. Yeah, and it's part of Maya and I to deliver that, to learn how we can do this role better and how it can be more inclusive. With Maya, a little bit mentioned that earlier, and I also would like to emphasize that I think this role is about to promote your country, no matter where you come from, but for us, it's Israel, and emphasizing the innovation and the creativity that the young generation can bring to the table. It's really important, and it's also something that the UN really put in the center of the conversation this year. Future generation. It's not just about talking about future generation and inviting them to the table. It's about making them part of decision making. And I think this role is a demonstration of that, of having young people in the decision making process, in all different aspects. For example, we're not just in New York at the UN. We are also here in Israel working together with different offices in our government to promote that, so that we'll have the ability in the future to have a better world that we'll live in together. With all that beautiful words, let's be honest about it. I think it's something that Maya and I share in common. Once we got the mandate, we realized that not a lot of people know about this role, and they do not know that they can be agents of change themselves. So if we want diversity and if we want to have an inclusive role here in Israel, we have to spread the word as much as we can. So this is why we started to be more active on social media. Also, with partnership with our government offices, go to and like cross-country youth centers to talk about the UN role, to talk about Israel, to talk about diplomacy and how it looks like. And I think it's a project that Maya and I want to bring together to the front stage. So it's not only for some people, but for everybody to get to know and know that they can be a part of a change. They can be a part of a global group of young and wonderful people that makes you do things that you wouldn't even imagine that you could do. I will let Maya speak more about it, but like about the art show in the UN and stuff that you would not even imagine that you can cooperate with different young people from different countries that you haven't met. like never been meeting unless you get the mandate. So yeah.
Thank you for the very brief introduction. But also how I came to the position was also quite a little bit by accident. Professor's teacher's assistant has sent, oh, listen, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has opened up this new call for proposals. So see if any of you are interested. And I've seen it and I've immediately looked at it. And the first thing I've thought, similarly to Talya, was I don't know if I can do it, or I'm not quite sure it's going to be me that would be the one that would get elected. So I'm like to think right now to come back and thank you, because it really shows how important it is to empower young women and talk about maybe change perspective and stop thinking about the fact that you are not going to be the one to do it and start thinking more positively, because it happened so that both Talya and I were elected. So that empowerment is a whole different subject, but it's an important one. So that is how I came about and got the part after many I don't know if auditions would be the word, but tryouts and tests. I'd like to, and then later on, when I first started, I looked and I would go right ahead after the exhibit, but I've seen that almost everything, almost every single connection that Israel is being talked about within the UN would be a negative. Almost everything. And I would just say, and I would take it as a clear example of as of today, like as of today, when all of us are very kindly speaking right now, the president of Israel is currently in a formal visit in Bahrain, which he was invited to by the king of Bahrain, Hamad Ben Isa Al Khalifa, and he was invited to it. And the Israeli national anthem was being played as he walked on, and it was the first time that it has ever happened that in an Arab country, that Israel's national anthem was being played, and it's not being talked about, and it's a shame. And so that's really coming back to the importance of really Israel's diplomacy and what we want to and need to kind of achieve in the UN system. But aside from that, and coming back to the youth delegate program, we really had the honor and privilege to talk about and collaborate with such great people. Prior to me flying to the UN, Talya and I listened. Talya told me, listen, we have these youth delegates. He's Hungarian. He's Bokomokos. You got to meet him. We're planning on doing this shared project, and we've reached out and we've had a Zoom meeting during which we've talked about doing a shared project in which kids would draw on recyclable trash cans that are made out of recycled material. That would be a way to teach kids and educate about the importance of recycling and the importance of really global climate action. So we were doing that. We were reaching out. He was doing it with some of his Hungarian colleagues. We collaborated with the Israeli Scouts of New York to have it being painted on, and then later on continued and engaged and had conversation, and it ended up being showcased as an official UN exhibition. If I'm not mistaken, it was also one of the first ever youth-led exhibitions, and it was such a great thing to have happened, because we had, you know, the president of the chair of the third committee come be a part, and the Secretary General's youth envoy come be a part and have a special talk regarding the importance of education and cooperation and how youth can really do it differently and have it seen from a different perspective. So it was truly a great opportunity. We were very privileged to have it happen, and it made us have such great connections within the diplomatic hemisphere, such as Demokos, and also beyond it. I mean, I cannot help but see Miriam right now and having great emotions of seeing a really great friend. So it's kind of beyond the diplomatic arena, which is important.
And what's your main goals as youth delegates during your these 2 years? What you want to achieve?
So I kind of like already like start talking about that. So I think like when we see the past youth delegate and when we look at ourselves, we see that we would like to have, I would say, more inclusive youth delegate program in Israel, and we want to go like cross country, tell people about this role, and we want that different sectors in Israel will try and apply to this. I think it's amazing that Maya and I, as two young women, are in this role. It's not something to take for granted. But I still think we have a long way to go and make this role more inclusive. So I think this would be our main goal for this year. I can talk about the goal of last year. Last year, it was like kind of COVID year. So we had to operate between, I would say, kind of between the lines, try to operate within Israel and establish the role with more government offices. So we can have a budget to work with, and we can ensure that our youth delegates are going to New York, and those things maybe in other countries that has a program for many years are obvious, but here in Israel it's not. So it was a lot of like a backstage work, and I'm really happy at where we are today, but we still have a long way to go in these two, I would say, two different subjects. And I think we'll start with that, and let's see what great things are going to happen.
That's great. I think we need more young women leaders as youth delegates and also in more higher positions. Let's hope we will see them in the future.
We can agree on that.
Definitely.
So I want to ask you something. As youth delegates, you might have faced a full-scale informational war against your country, and certain people's countries, they want to portray the different picture and so on. What you can say about it?
I'll start. I mean, I'll start by making things as clear as possible. No matter what I will do, and no matter what I will say, there are people that would not be in favor of my country, no matter what. And it's important thing to say, an important thing to have recognized, because it changes the way we view diplomacy. And you could see it by the way we're quite literally in the UN being set, like the UN sitting system is obviously by the ABC. And I mean, thank God for Ireland, because it is Israel, Ireland, Iraq, Iran. So it's us, a small little European country, and two countries that really think that we have no right of existence, to say the least, and try to boycott our sense of existence quite on the daily basis. So I would say a starting point would be to have the understanding that not everybody would view Israel the same, no matter what we say, no matter what we do. That being said, I think our main agenda as of now is to stop the lying or obscure accusations. I mean, I'll give a very brief example from the General Assembly this year, the special repertoire on the subject of elimination of discrimination, which is, and the elimination of discrimination, it goes on many things, one of them being Nazism, keep that in mind, have stated in one of her recommendations in this year's report that the Israeli government in the past couple of years is doing a cynical use in Holocaust remembrance, so we could allegedly keep and harass Palestinians, which cannot be more false, cannot be more far from the truth, cannot be viewed as more, speaking of cynical, cannot be viewed more cynically. Israel would be the last country that would look at Holocaust remembrance cynically. I mean, to look at it from the most, I'm saying me as Maya, not even me as Israel. Brazil gave a statement about the importance of human rights, and it was a completely different subject. And so the delegate said about she went on and on about the remembrance of the Holocaust and how we should not be using it cynically. And I went on to her after she has done spoken, and the chair has adjourned the meeting, and I went on to her with my eyes tearing up, telling her that my grandfather he lost most of his family in the Holocaust, and I could not be more thankful that she put it out to the table, literally holding my, for dear life, not to cry. And I know Talya could go on about her family and what really they have done, but to come with such an obscure accusation, and then you'd have to kind of zoom out, and then you could see where that special repertoire is from, and you could say that she is, and I'm going to talk about it very briefly, but she was from Russia, and the whole Russian input right now is to look up discrimination while they are doing what they're doing in Ukraine, and I will get to it later on when I conclude with my prayers for the Ukrainian people in your truly incredible and important fight. But she just could not have it be the subject of somewhat talking about Russia. So she was just kind of browsing. Okay, what's the easiest target? Oh, Israel. And that was the end of that. So the bluntest, farthest accusation that could have been put in was just placed so that people could talk about literally everything else that is not what's happening in Russia right now. So we're truly the easiest target. So what we need to do many of the times is to try and combat these false accusations, these devastating accusations for what Judaism is, what Israel is, what Holocaust remembrance is, and what it means. But that really was something that I think took us by surprise, because we truly didn't think that people could be so far away from the truth. But that's for one. But second is truly how important is, quote unquote, the fight, or how important it is that we do what we need to be doing, because people we try to disrespect our heritage and history every day, constantly. So that's how I view it, at least.
I think this Maya pretty much wrapped it as I see it. And yeah, I think also we talk about representation. I think part of representation, let's say, not just in the official stage of the UN, but also on the whole of the UN, is about this personal connection. That people sometimes see us, this like, okay, Israel, you're a country, and what they have to say about Israel. And I'm willing to discuss whatever, but we need to first recognize the fact that the state of Israel is not going anywhere, and we're here to stay. And then we can discuss and we can talk. But as I always say, I reach out my hand for partner and for peace. Let's hope that the other side will do it as well.
If you have any questions, opinions, or stories to tell, you are welcome from now on.
I see there are questions on the chat. I can't see them. So again,
I will read it to you. One is from Anastasia. Which kind of comments do you get and how do you protect yourself?
I think it was a comment made for Lash's statement, if you really want to touch on that, because he mentioned that he received so many backlash and hateful comments about his choice to just purely study Judaism and what it means. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Hopefully I'm saying so you know, like, it's very interesting that I understand a lot of things that you've been as a youth delegate, also really time thing, and I frequently write in Yiddish and I publish my articles internationally, and I received a lot of like hatred and hated comments from Europeans or from Americans or Australians that call me a supporter of an apartheid regime, and that they call me saying like, oh, you know what, like, you know, like, you're just another person supporting this. And I just want to say that, you know, like, the anti-Semitism is not something that the Jews invented. So if we want to make sure that it stops, it's the non-Jews that have to stop it. So like, this is what I tell them all the time. I'm sorry, like, it's not up to them to make sure that the world gets rid of the anti-Semitism. This is the people that invented it. They have to do something for that. And being a youth delegate is a very, very difficult task, because a lot of times you struggle. I mean, there are two kinds of youth delegates. I'm talking from my own experience. You have very internationally minded youth delegates that don't actually care about the countries that they represent. They just came there to go to the United Nations, to build an international career, to go to New York. So they don't actually care that much about where they come from. And then you have delegates like me, for example, that are very patriotic about the country they represent. So very often, whenever someone talks to me, you know, about like, someone would come up to me and make a joke to me in Russian. I'm like, don't do that. You ignorant, we're not going to call the name. It's not funny. You have to learn what's funny and what's not funny. Making fun of people's national values is not funny. Talking to me in Russian when I lost so many members of my family in 1937, when the Soviet regime deported hundreds of thousands, saying that grandfather's family members were eliminated in the Shoah. So like, you know, do not joke with me about things you don't understand. So it's a great point, you know, youth delegates do need more education. They do. Just like nations, to be frank with you.
You're the type of ally that we need. Thank you so much for those kind and also very truly important words. And with those remarks, unfortunately, but as I've spoken to you, Rafi, I would have to, at least for me and this meeting, really thank you all for participating, inviting, and sharing and listening. It's extremely important. I would very much like to continue these important connections. I mean, Iraqi has both our professional and my personal social. So please, wherever you can, feel free to reach out always. And I will continue on, be in touch. Thank you once again. That is me out, but please feel free to continue.
So I would like also to talk about a little bit about women leaders. I know we talked about Israel and youth delegate, but I think it's really special that Israel has 2 young women as youth delegate, because women in decision-making process, having women in the process is not just right, but it's also a key for sustainable development. And it's important to have, every part of the population equally represented. So I don't know if you know it, but unfortunately, out of 193 UN member states, there have never been more than 19 led by women at any one time. And also women account for just 1 in 4 political representatives around the democratic world. And also UN Women just earlier this year has presented that it will take us 130 years to close the inequality gap. Let me say it again, 130 years to close the gap. We have a long way to go, and it's like an understatement about that. So I just want to say that we need girls in school to become women in politics. It is a quote that has been said a lot of times, but it's almost 2023. We're at the end of 2022. And it's time to make it happen. Not just talking about it, but also seeing women as youth delegates, seeing women at the table, speaking at the table, bringing their own perspective, bringing their thoughts, talking out loud, taking the stage. And yeah, so this is why this series of webinars is so important, to bring this subject into light and talk about it. And I'm so happy that here with us in the webinar, they're not only women, but also Lasha is here, and Iraqi is the one who hosted it. It is so important that we see ourselves as partners for this goal.
Yes, we should talk more about it. And in my country, the young women leaders face many challenges, let's say. Some of them don't get university grade education, like in the deep rural areas of the country. And they are married before even they reach 18 years. And this is still a problem. And we are more of a traditional conservative country where men have more leading roles and women have more traditional roles. But I see that this is changing slowly, but we have more and more women leaders, like we know our previous year delegates and many others. So we should promote everywhere we can young women leaders. And let me ask you, what chance they face in the world right now, in your opinion?
Can you ask the question again?
What chance young women leaders face in the world right now, in your opinion?
I think one of the challenges is taking your place at the table. I mean, a lot of times women are part of the conversation, but you're not getting your voice heard. We are educated as young women to be polite, to be nice, to be representative, but we should be educated to be brave, to speak up, to stand up for ourselves and for our rights. Having women at the table is not about diversity. It's about being inclusive. It's not like a nice to have. It's something that we must have. Women stand for almost like 50% of world population. You cannot have decisions about women's bodies without having women at the table. Let's take, for example, abortion at the US. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying if you're making a decision about women should be at the table. You know, women should be at the highest court judges. Why does it seem for everybody so reasonable that you have, I don't know, 8 judges that are white men at United States court, but you're not seeing almost like half of them are not women? And for some people, it will be weird even to think that there will be 8 women. Why? I mean, I think those challenges women are facing globally and not just here in Israel. And I think in Israel, it's also about women representative. Our last government before the election we had many percent of women representation. I was very proud of that. Right now, after the election, we don't know what's going to happen, but we still hope for that numbers to keep up. And also just, I think young girls should have, let's say, modern women in front of them, modern role models to look up to, so they can imagine what they can be. And when I think about it, I want my future girls and I want my nieces to have someone to look up to and say, I want to be just like her. And for that to happen, we need to have women in sport. We need to have women in politics. We need to have women as astronauts. We need to have more women in more like central roles. So.
Masha, you can tell us your story about your program.
Well, I think it's not something like very different, but like to we actually resurrected language program in 26, and then like years later I was able to do it, and then I did it in a very way.
Masha, change mic
Money on top of them, and I brought them to my students in the classroom. Yeah, my internet, I don't know why, but internet connection is really bad here. So I'd be happy to keep in touch.
Your voice is missing, Masha.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yes, yes. Okay, let's talk without camera.
Yeah, my internet connection is really bad, so maybe now it's kind of. So yeah, I'm just saying that it's very important. We have used delegates whenever we finish the mandate, that we remember that we still have to do a lot for the community, and we have to give example to the younger generation that you can do things when you want. I mean, I saved the language program which was closed by the Soviet regime in 1926. And I was able to bring it back in 2022. One person can change things, just like that one person can damage a lot of things. So we have to really promote that a youth delegate mandate never really ends. You never really leave your responsibilities to the young people and to other persons to inspire them. So thank you very much for the amazing work that you do. And Irakli, thank you so much for supporting every single Georgian youth delegate. You're a great support to all of us, and we really value your existence in the program. You're a very, very valuable member of the youth delegate journey in Georgia.
Miriam, I want to ask you about your opinion as well on Women Leadership Challenge. Miriam, do you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you. Can you maybe repeat the question?
I
That would
want
be
to
nice.
ask you same question about Women Leadership Challenge.
Okay, yeah. I think like Talya painted such a great picture of what is really important. Like I loved the things she said about we need role models, because like a lot of people, they're scared, especially like when you're a younger woman, or if you're like 14, 15 and you're in high school and you're not sure what you want to do with your life, and you have to decide, do I want to go into a technical, for example, profession, or do I want to go into something like Talya said, working with the space and being an astronaut? You need a role model. If there are no people you can look up to, no people that can show you how it works, then it's really hard to be the first one and to like get up and say, yeah, I want to do that. So I think like the big challenge we're now facing is that we need a lot of women that stand up now and say, okay, I have no problem to be the first one who does something amazing. Like I think, for example, a good example is Slovenia, because I think they have the first female president just elected. And like trying something like that, being the first president that is female of a country, that's a really hard journey. And we see that all around the globe. But I think it's not only the problem with the role model, but also what Talya mentioned with education. Because even nowadays, in a lot of parts of the world, young people in general do not have access to education, but it's even worse, the situation for young girls. And if you're not able to learn, to educate yourself, to get the knowledge and tools to realize your ideas and visions, how should you become the role model you want to be for another person? And I think here the challenges are hard, but it's also about what we heard earlier today. It's not only about women standing up to do it, but it's also about men standing up, because it's never one group that should stand up for themselves. It's like society that should come together and try to get a more equal access for everyone. And I think that's what also Talya mentioned about, it's not only diversity, it's about inclusivity. And yeah, I think that's, I can only like highlight what Talya said because it was great.
Thank you, Miriam. We are still waiting for your visit here in Israel.
I see there is one question for you, Talya. Which kind of comments do you get, and how do you protect yourself?
I think it was a question for Lasha that he already addresses.
Okay. If it's already addressed.
But I think it's up. Maybe you tell us, maybe it will be like a good finishing line, saying we need to have those more women as role models, and we need to inspire young girls in school, so they will become young leaders. At the end, we will see them at the top of the pyramid and not just in the middle of it. So thank you again for inviting me, and thank you all for this great conversation. Lasha, Miriam, really, it's a great opportunity for me to meet you all and to also tell a little bit more about myself, not just as a youth delegate, but also as a person and as a woman who is trying to figure out her way in the diplomatic world. And I will write down my email in the chat and our Instagram, and I invite you all to write to us, stay in touch with us. I'm always here to answer questions about this system, the youth delegate system, also about Israel, and please feel free to contact me anytime.
Oh, thanks, Talya, and also Maya. You are a really amazing woman leaders, and I'm happy to know you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm writing down my details in the chat. So, and again, feel free to write to us, and both of us will be more than happy to have a further conversation.
Let's hope we will meet on more amazing events, online or offline.
Let's hope so. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I hope I can host you and Maya in Georgia someday.
Oh, we really hope so too. I would be more than happy. Even after my mandate is over, I will be happy to come visit.
Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye.